October 31st. What comes to your mind when you think of this date? Ghosts and goblins? Trick-or-treating? How about jack-o'-lanterns? I'm sure these are more pop in your head when you think of this day. Let me tell you about what one single man did to help guide our faith into what it is today. In doing so, I'll cover some of the reasons for the 95 Thesis, a few examples of it, and some long and short-term effects caused by this man that is still living our lives today. Leading up to Martin Luther's writing of the 95 Thesis, a near-death experience in his life unintentionally sparked not only a new beginning, but also a new new outlook on the aspect of religion. NewAdvent.org informs us that returning to the monastery from his home in Mansfield, Luther found himself right in the heart of a horrible thunderstorm. After being nearly struck by lightning, he half-heartedly cried out, saying, "Help, St. Anna, I will be a monk." During this time at the monastery, he came across the book of Romans, which was hidden in like a bookshelf downstairs, where he read in chapter 1, "The just shall live by faith." He realized he had been attempting to attain the spiritual process of justification on his own. He also realized he had been weighing too heavily on the good works of man, rather than simple faith. This led to the acknowledgement of the abuses in the church. The main abuses he found troubling were the selling of indulgences. There were a lot more, but that's the main one that hit him. Luther.de, which I think is a German website. I'm not sure. I think DE is something German. It was in English though. He claimed that they quasi-replaced the confession and allowed people to buy their salvation, which we know is not possible or applicable. In many cases, the chief interest of the church became worldly activities. The indulgences simply let the people engage in their activities and purchase their way into eternal salvation, no matter how they lived or what they did for Christ, or even if they had a personal relationship with Him at all. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther posted the 95 Theses on the door in the Castle Church in Wittenberg. Here are some examples of what he had to say. The fifth thesis says, the Pope has neither the will nor the power to remit any penalties beyond those imposed either at his own discretion or by canon law. The 32nd one says, all those who believe themselves certain of their own salvation by means of letters of indulgences will be eternally damned together with their teachers. 48 says, Christians should be taught that in granting indulgences, the Pope has more need and more desire for devout prayer on his own behalf than for ready money. So that was like a deep cut to the Pope. Number 62 is, the true treasures of the Church of the Holy Gospel of the true treasures of the Church is the Holy Gospel of the glory and the grace of God. And then finally the last thesis, number 95, says, and let them be thus more confident of entering heaven through many tribulations rather than through a false assurance of peace. So after seeing on 5 examples of it, then here's some more of history behind it, what happened after that, because nailing 95 problems with the church is going to have some big effects. So after posting them, those examples, and there were also 90 more, at the door of Wittenberg, and lettering them to people. Immediately, Priest Tetzel, who was the priest in charge of indulgences of the Holy Roman Empire, he was the most passionate against Luther because he was the one selling the indulgences. So he called Luther a heretic who followed Jan Hus, who was another heretical teacher, and so he was trying to just make Luther look like a fool, really. And another piece of history that happened after it is, while many were threatening Luther to be burned at the stake for his reformational ideals, calling him a rebel within the ranks, some bishops welcomed the idea of the reform. So he had 2 different ideas, and it wasn't all seen as bad. Richard Hooker tells us in an article published online at wsu.edu that at the Diet of Worms, Emperor Charles V forced Luther to recant his beliefs. After refusing to recant, Charles placed him under an imperial ban, considering him to be an outlaw. GreatSite.com also gives us the information that Martin Luther had escaped from imminent martyrdom and then died of natural causes, so he didn't end up getting burned at the stake or anything. Long-term effects are countless, but here are a couple that have directly affected our lives. First, the Protestant Reformation came directly from that. And then that sparked an outcry against the false teachings in the Catholic Church, and it helped ignite a growth in the Church back to its original roots, like it was in the Book of Acts. Another example is the 30 Years' War, which, although no one can agree on the exact cause, it's commonly believed that it was directly sparked because the Protestants and the Catholics were not agreeing, so they started a war. Now that you've learned about the causes, the short and long-term effects, and even some examples in the 95 Theses, it's up to you to decide what to do. One man rewrote the history books for Jesus by challenging the corruption and authority of the Roman Catholic Church. What can you do for God? Luther did his part. Who knows? In this room we could have the next Billy Graham, as long as we, like Luther, aren't afraid of what the world can throw at us. No banishment, no threat of burning at the stake should be able to hold us back from what God has planned for us. I'll leave you with this quote by Luther. It says, "And let them be thus more confident of entering heaven through many tribulations, rather than through a false assurance of peace."